Vanessa, let's welcome you to the program. And well, you're in Damascus. A couple of days ago, there was some activity from the Israeli direction.
Yes, I would also, first of all, say that under international law, Israel is an occupied force, therefore doesn't have the right to self-defense. But yes, 2 days ago, or was it yesterday? I lose track because the attacks are always in the early hours of the morning. Israel launched actually one of its largest expanded strikes against Syria for some time, since actually probably before 2011. So let's have a look quickly at a couple of sort of amateur videos that were taken of the attacks and the interception by Syrian air defense over basically the coastal area. So this will be close to Tartus on the western coast of Syria. There have been rumors that the Syrian air defenses did actually shoot down an Israeli warplane. Now, obviously, if they did, that will have landed in the sea. And so, therefore, until now, we haven't got substantiation of those rumors. And of course, Israel is not going to be the first one to admit it. So the first wave of attacks basically came from Lebanon, the northwest of Lebanon, and then from, as I said, the western coastal region from the Mediterranean Sea. It's worth also noting that Russian jets were buzzing the Israeli jets. They were patrolling the coastal area to prevent the Israeli jets entering Syrian airspace, but they couldn't engage with the jets because of the activity of the Syrian air defense would have put them in peril, of course. So the area that was extensively targeted is the village and the countryside of Masyaf, inside that red circle to the west of Hama and Homs in sort of central Syria. The first wave of attacks used the Delilah cruise missiles. I'm not sure of the number that was used, but it was an extensive attack. The majority of the missiles were downed by the Syrian air defenses, and it's believed that for the first time in some time, the Syrian air defense used the S-200, which was seen to arrive as far as Haifa in the occupied territories. That was then followed by a wave. So while they had tried to create almost a belt of fire for the Syrian air defense, and then sent in the Harop suicide drones to target certain areas inside Syria. So this was a very, very extensive attack. However, a number of the drones were brought down in various areas on the coast and surrounding the Masyaf Homs area. Now, interestingly, there was a French Air Force plane seen coming in from the Jordan airspace, but carrying out surveillance shortly before the attack. And that, I think, is the first time that the French planes have been involved. It's also interesting that about a year ago, there was talk of setting up a NATO base and headquarters in Jordan. In addition to the Syrian army's research centers and a position in the north of the city of Masyaf, the Israelis also targeted a military base in the southwest of the city, which, according to the Israeli regime, was the site of the production of rockets utilized by the Lebanese resistance movement. The military base, which is identified as an underground facility, and the Institute 4000 Research Center was also targeted in the airstrike by the occupying regime's army on the 12th, March the 12th, 2023. Since 2018, the mentioned center has been attacked by the Israeli regime's army at least on 4 occasions. And if we go back 1 year, I think we reported on this report in Hebrew by the INSS, Tel Aviv University-related think tank, that actually went into some detail about the perceived threat from Syria's weapon development. Now, in the strikes, there were 14 people killed, many injured, 6 critically, all of whom were taken to the Masyaf National Hospital. And in fact, the director of the National Hospital was himself injured, and a Syrian news agency reporter. Also, they appeared to have deliberately caused extensive damage to water lines, to equipment and civil defense teams that were heading to put out the fires, vehicles. As you can see, the main road between Mesyaf and various other villages was shut down and is now obviously under reconstruction. Electricity, internet lines were heavily damaged. And of course, this is relatively normal. We've seen the water crimes in Gaza and in Lebanon, of course, the attacks and the burning of Lebanese forestry and the destruction of civilian infrastructure. So very similar pattern here.
Vanessa, thank you very much for that. We will keep an eye on how that develops and how this escalates, as undoubtedly it will. Okay, if you like what the UK Column does, you would like to support us, the place to go is support.ukcolumn.org. We do need your financial support. It's what keeps us going, and we'd like to thank everybody that is supporting us in this way. But we also need you to share material on the various platforms. So the place to go to get that is ukcolumn.org or ukcolumnextracts.co.uk. We are censored on the various platforms. And so if you can help be the algorithm, this is extremely useful. Plenty for you to have a look at on the UK Column shop if you'd like to support us that way as well. And Agenda 21, Your Life in Their Hands, is still available for purchase if you would like to get a copy. Now, this is September the 11th, and so I just want to remind everybody of the symposium that we hosted for the International Centre for 9/11 Justice at the weekend. The archive of that is on the UK Column website at the moment. We will be splitting these up into separate presentations, but the archive of the full live stream is there for you to have a look at if you would like, with timings in the show notes so that you can step forward to the place you'd like to watch. Tomorrow at 1 p.m. We're premiering the interview that I've done with Diane Serre and Jose Vega from the United States. They are standing for Senate and Congress, respectively, in New York. And well, they had plenty to say about that. It's probably the only interesting thing that's going on in the US election at the moment. But join us at 1 p.m. for that tomorrow, if you can. A reminder of the Bristol event, UK Column location, on the 19th of October. There's still tickets available for this. Piers Robinson, David Miller, Peter Ford will be among the people relaunching Media on Trial. Bob Moran will be speaking. Ahmed Malik, Katie Jo Murphy will be talking about Hope Sussex. Claire Wills Harrison will be talking about how we deal with tax and whether we would like to perhaps hold a tax strike. And Brian and I speaking at the Heritage Party conference on Saturday the 20th of September. That's in Reading. Details at heritageparty.org. And this coming Saturday, there's a rally for peace taking place on Glasgow Green at the Commonwealth Monument at 1 p.m. And a number of speakers there. Please get along to that if you are in the Glasgow area, if you possibly can. Now, bring us up to date then with what's going on in the wider Middle East.
Well, I mean, I've talked about the expansion of aggression against Syria, but that has to be looked at in the context of what's happening in the West Bank, in Gaza, and in Lebanon also. So we are seeing, and actually in rhetoric regarding Iran, as I'll show at the end of the report. So last Friday, an Israeli sniper killed US-Turkish activist in the West Bank by shooting her in the head. And there is, I think, reports circulating that he was celebrating the kill immediately after. So that was on Friday. On Monday, Netanyahu gave a press conference during which he showed a map of Palestine with Palestine completely missing from the map. He had erased it entirely from the map. Let's see what Matthew Miller, the US State Department spokesperson, said in response to a question about this basic disappearance of Palestine from the map of Palestine.
One last final question. Yesterday, Netanyahu showed a map when he talked about the Philadelphia corridor. It has no West Bank, it has nothing on it. Is this kind of normal that he shows a map with just Israel on it? There's no Palestinian resistance?
I'm not going to comment on the...
I'm just saying, is that normal for you?
So I'm not going to comment on the Prime Minister's press conference. We have been quite clear about our position when it comes to Gaza, when it comes to the West Bank, when it comes ultimately to a two-state solution. Yeah.
Thank you.
No comment. But I mean, this is quite extraordinary. Would he be quite so mealy-mouthed if this was regarding Ukraine and Russia, for example? Then followed by Netanyahu actually doubling down with the map of Israel. It goes from the river. The river is right here. That's the Jordan River, to the sea, the Mediterranean Sea. So when Hamas is talking about liberating Palestine from the river to the sea, basically what they're saying is destroying Israel. That comes after he has effectively erased Palestine from the map. Then let's have a look at what's been happening in Gaza, just ongoing genocide, appalling massacres. Of course, the majority of victims are children again. Israeli massacre in Jabalia camp, another one of the heavily congested refugee camps where people have been gathering after being displaced from other areas of Gaza. After the Khan Yunis massacre, which was one of the worst, again, that we've seen. So let's have a look at the details on that. The shelling of Mawazi, Khan Yunis. Mawazi, of course, was one of the primary safe areas that Israel persuaded people to go to when they early hours of Tuesday, Israel launched an extensive attack against the displacement camp in al-Mawazi. The area was previously declared an alleged safe zone. An unfinalized death toll indicates that at least 40 Palestinians have been killed in the aggression, while 65 others were injured. However, the numbers are expected to exponentially increase in the upcoming pound bombs dropped by the IOF. Entire families have been wiped out, while others completely disappeared in the sand. So let's just have a look at a video which shows the craters left behind by these 2,000-pound bombs.
نار كبير في هذا المكان، حفرة عميقة لا توصف في هذا المكان جراء استهدافها بأكثر من 5 صواريخ. عملية الإنقاذ والبحث ما زالت مستمرة رغم وعورة المكان. عشرات الخيام تتوسط هذا مكان القصف كما نشاهد، رائحة البارود.
Remember, this is in an incredibly crowded area that they dropped this size of munition. Just extraordinary. This is a report by Dr. Christopher Busby for Al Mayadeen, co-authored. Is Israel using small nuclear weapons in Gaza and South Lebanon? And what does he say in the report? This investigation has been ongoing for some time. The American Peace Information Council and Green Audit, which is Busby, are conducting an investigation of Israel's possible use of small nuclear weapons in Gaza and South Lebanon. So basically what he says, they've asked people who drive ambulances down in the south or live there to come forward with engine air filters from ambulances driven in bombed areas, samples of long hair, if they live in bombed areas, and Geiger counter readings and soil samples from bomb craters. And they asked for those samples to be sent. Interestingly, the Lebanese Red Cross has so far refused to collaborate in the investigation. So again, just horrific. And this is from the IOF, so take it with a degree of a pinch of salt. But these are the latest attacks on southern Lebanon, which is the brown area, showing, according to the IOF, the targeting of launch pads, ammunition areas, and so on, showing an extensive targeting of those areas across the south of Lebanon, but of course not taking into account the fact that many of those missiles have actually landed in or ended up doing serious damage to civilian infrastructure. And if we actually look at the next video, we can see again, it's amateur videos of the targeting from about 5 a.m. this morning. And I mentioned Iran also. This is Gantz speaking at the MEAD conference in Washington. Benny Gantz calls for increased pressure on Iran and says that the time for action in the north has come and that Israel is late on this, that they need to take care of Hezbollah. Now, interesting timing. So this presentation is coming just before elections and with Trump in, I would say, voting ascendancy in the US. So what did he say? This war has shown that we need to increase military, diplomatic, and economic pressure on Iran, and that we cannot accept an agreement that only addresses nuclear issues, but must also include restrictions on funding and operating proxies. Proxies, of course, are another word for the allies of Iran, which will mean Iraq, Yemen, Lebanon, Syria, state and non-state actors. Gantz identified Iran as the root of regional problems. While Hezbollah poses an operational threat, we must remember that Iran is the core issue. Look at the situation in Iraq, Yemen, and Lebanon. Achieving real victory is about resolving the Hamas issue and recovering hostages. It's about a regional alliance against the Iranian axis that has established terror cells around us. Syria is described, therefore, as a terror cell, one presumes. Iran is involved in almost every conflict, from supplying UAVs to Russia, which Iran is currently actually denying, the use in Ukraine, to supporting terrorism in Sudan and Algeria. The prospect of Iran with nuclear capabilities is concerning. We must maintain pressure on Iran, not just militarily, but economically and politically, with greater intensity. This is a global responsibility. Any future nuclear deal must address enrichment and launch capabilities and impose severe restrictions on funding and operating proxies. As I've said, Iran presents a global and regional challenge, not just an Israeli concern. So quite incredible, belligerent rhetoric from Gantz, who's previously been described as a more moderate version of Netanyahu. And then let's have a look at a recent video of Trump on his campaign trail speaking about Israel. And let's just roll this. Quite extraordinary again.
And if I don't win this election, Israel, with Comrade Kamala Harris at the helm of the United States, is doomed. Israel is doomed. That's a tough statement. Israel will be gone. 1 year, 2 years, Israel will no longer exist. I better win, or you're going to have problems like we've never had. We may have no country left. It may be our last election. You want to know the truth? People have said that. This may be our last election. You got to get out and vote. This could be our last election.
I mean, honestly, US elections are, I don't know, off the scale pantomime at the moment.
Yes, Vanessa, it did put a smile on my face, any allegations that Iran is supporting terrorism in Sudan and Algeria. I think Britain is a much more likely candidate for that. But anyway, thank you for that.